Hello everyone, this is Amal Roy and welcome to another episode of Soccer Stories. In this episode, we'll be talking about various styles of play in football. The style of play in football is quite diverse. While in general, there are 8 contributory factors which determine the tactics adopted by teams the world over. It could be said with certainty that the World Cup has played a major role in the evolution of the style of play we have come to know over the years. The 8 styles of play include maintenance, build-up, sustained threat, fast tempo, direct play, counter-attack, crossing, and high press. Each team adopts a style of play according to the tactics drawn by its manager. Interestingly, the tactical approach of the teams has itself undergone a sea of change from the early days after the first Cambridge rules were put to operation in 1848. As we know from FIFA records, teams were set out in wild attacking formations initially with no definite pattern of play. This was on account of the teams playing in the 1-2-7 formation or the 2-2-6 which occurred a bit later. As we know from FIFA records, teams were set out in wild attacking formations initially with no definite pattern of play. This was on account of the teams playing in the 1-2-7 formation or the 2-2-6 which occurred a bit later with focus primarily on the attack. Passing, as we know today, was never a main feature of the game in those days, as what made a player a good footballer back then was purely his dribbling skills. Teams often adapted a refined version of these attacking styles to suit in accordance with the quality of the players in its roster. So, the teams would march forward in a swan-like formation with its players dribbling their way into the opposing goal. Their teammates thus was reduced to the role of spectators waiting to collect loose balls. This trend was to continue for several decades until the Hungarians brought about a revolution with a tactical development that would help them hold sway over world football at that time. The Hungarians, as they took control, played a deep-lying midfielder who partnered with the central defender to keep rivals at bay. This pattern of play helped the team to push on the other 2 defenders in attacking fullback positions down the 2 flanks. This in turn helped the 4 Hungarian forwards to be constantly on the move so as to create space in their bid to launch meaningful attacks. A classic example of the early Hungarian supremacy on the field through this method of play was its rousing 6-3 win over England away in Wembley in 1953. It does, given the circumstances, make a sad story that Hungary and its star forward Ferenc Puskás, despite all the titles it amassed, still failed to lift the World Cup in Bern in 1954. The Brazilians, however, did not fall at the last hurdle after they took the world by storm between 1958 and 1970 and became the first nation to win the World Cup thrice. The success of the South Americans was scripted by the novel move of operating with a 4-man backline. They thus played with the 2 central defenders and an equal number of attacking fullbacks, the latter also supplementing the work of its 2 midfielders. This gave Brazil a sound defensive foundation and allowed its strikers, including the great Pelé, to create havoc on the opposition. The Brazilian dominance over the world was finally broken by the Netherlands, which brought about the most significant and influential tactical evolution in the history of the game. This happened in the early 1970s as the Dutch led by its flamboyant talisman, Johan Cruyff, crafted a new style which came to be known as a total football. This system involved constant movement and interchanging of positions by all the players up front, giving fluidity to football for the first time and a robust pace all through. People with little technical expertise would have found out that the Dutch players were simply wandering around the park as they pleased. But in reality, they were just operating in a precise manner, well drilled to keep the opposition guessing while creating gaps to score at will. However, it is a pity that the Dutch fell twice at the brink of victory, losing the World Cup finals back-to-back in 1974 and 1978. What a great tragedy. It was a counter to total football that the famed Catenaccio developed. Known also as a door bolt, it was a highly defensive tactic used most successfully in the 1980s as a counterploy to the marauding Dutch attack. It was first adapted in Italy in 1960s. It was perfected 2 decades later, giving the shape to several great Italian teams. This again was to help Italy to get its world title in 1982, a good 44 years after its second title in 1938. The Italians, who had also won the second World Cup, however, would be missing the FIFA's flagship event for a second time in a row in Qatar, having failed to qualify for 2018 Russia as well. Breaking away from the Italian stranglehold, another style emerged around 2008, this time in Spain, where football guru Pep Guardiola, as the helmsman of FC Barcelona, applied large amounts of possession and high-intense pressing as the key factors of his new game plan. This, like total football, was to bring back fluidity into the attack and became popularly known as Tiki Taka. The new features were soon adopted by the Spanish national team, and it was soon rewarded well, leading to their victory in the 2010 World Cup and the European Championship of 2008 and 2012. The successful run of the Spanish team has had an impact in the game on a global scale as never before. So much so that it is a common sight of low-tier teams adopting the tactic first perfected by Barcelona. As a corollary, what has impacted the game per se is that long balls have become a rarity in football. However, this again cannot be a lasting trend, as football, now acutely tactical and played scientifically when compared with the early days, will continue to turtle forward with teams on the lookout for newer methods to conquer their opposition. The beautiful game, as Pele once put it, will definitely thrive. With this, we conclude for today. Stay tuned to Striking Seconds for more soccer stories. Hasta la vista.